Three words for you, Robert.
Which three?
Real estate bubble. And that real estate bubble is about to burst, a massive burst. On this episode of Real Estate Chat with
Yonder Perez.
and Robert Eade, we're going to be talking about this apparent real estate bubble that's been growing and is finally going to burst. Let's start with looking at some nice looking charts here. And this is from Better Dwelling. And it says Toronto real estate prices literally look like the textbook chart for asset bubbles. And when we look at these charts, and Robert has lots of charts, if you click like and subscribe and you watch previous episodes of Real Estate Chat, you see his charts and you can decide for yourself if it's a bubble or not. It basically goes up and up and up and up and up and up to that paradigm, then a denial. So apparently we're sort of at the stage right now of a return to normal. And so most are seeing this, fall market as, it return to normal, maybe like, sales prices starting to inch up again. And then all of a sudden, the bubble bursts in fear, capitulation, despair, that roller coaster ride all the way down. And you know what? This chart is actually from September 7th, 2018. And Robert, what happened in 2017, 2018, if we recall, not so long ago?
Well, in 2018, there had been a big run-up of prices. And so the government of Ontario intervened with 16 different measures on March the 20th. And they had been fiddling around with rent control changes and anyway, 16 different elements that affect real estate that comes from the provincial government were implemented all at once to try and knock down the speculative fervor that was happening then, and it worked. So that coupled with a couple of interest rates hike, and it knocked it right down so that prices fell off by, 10%, something or other. And sales fell off, and so everybody wondered what's going to happen, and then it recovered again.
So they put on they pumped the brakes, they put it, and then all of a sudden that bubble apparently burst. And now in recent history, we saw a run-up of asset prices in real estate go up to February 2022 peak, then dipped. And now I guess what the bubble community is saying is basically that we're inching up and then all of a sudden it's going to drop again. But they're not the only ones saying that, Robert, right? You shared an article with me too that says an international strategist says that Canada is sitting on the largest housing bubble of all time. And we're going to link both of these, of course, resources in our show description, but you can read through this. But I mean, there's so much content about bubbles and so many different theories about bubbles. One of the ones that, one of the evidence, I guess, that this camp is using is basically that the household debt, right? So the average Canadian household debt now, Canadian household now owes about $1.87 of debt for every dollar of disposable income they have. Whereas in the US, they owe $1.01. So they're using comparative analysis in terms of how much do we owe versus that country versus the Americans versus this. The fact that rates have gone up and up and up and up. And if you watched a few episodes ago, there may be further rate hikes coming up. So we were in a massive, massive bubble. Robert, will this bubble pop anytime soon?
Okay. The comparison that's being used here is a comparison of the average income, the average disposable income in relation to house prices. And you can't make that comparison because as Statistics Canada and most national bureaus of statistics indicate or use, they use quintiles. They break the population into 20% hunks, which is a quintile, 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 quintile. Now, I call these silk collar, white collar, blue collar, company collar, and no collar. And if you look at the Canadian statistics, the only people who are buying houses at any time are in the top three quintiles. The white collar, the silk collar, the white collar, and the blue collar. These people are working, they have a job, they have a family, they have a car, and they have an income. But if you add in all this stuff that's being supported on welfare, being supported by who knows what, it brings the average down. Now, it's always that way, but the people who are at the bottom are not involved in the housing market. So that's one question about to making the comparison. The other thing is, a lot of people paid a good price at the top of the market, in the top 10% of the market, when it was up the last 10 or even 20%. Some of those people are going to lose money because they can't afford the payments when their mortgage comes up for renewal. Now, if they've taken a 5-year lock, they might be coming upon it right now. But if they've taken a 5-year lock at the peak, they wouldn't be worried about it for another 2 or 3 years when the mortgage comes up for renewal. So everybody is wondering what the various segments, in this case, what are the spec elements, the people who are not occupying the house, but counting either on appreciation or a tenant to get them out of a situation that they got themselves into because they were making an investment decision. Now, supply and demand. If these non-owner occupant sellers flood the market and take any kind of an offer at all just to get out of the mess, well, there may cause a supply and demand issue and a price issue. But the great, huge majority of homeowners who might be selling, the last time seller and the buy to sell, sell to buy, trade up, trade down customer, they'll just say, this is an adverse time, I'm not going to play right now. And so they won't. Just like the last time seller hung on to his property or her property for a long time over the last 5 years because it was going up by 1 or 2% a month, they said, I'm going to wait. So they may sell now. And, they bought it in 1968. They bought it in 1953. What do they care about the last 10 or 15%? So there will be an adjustment in the average price. There will be an adjustment in the tenor of the market. But the best properties are still going to get the most attention, and there will always be buyers in that silk collar and in that white collar and in that blue collar, top 3 quintiles of the market. They will always be buying and will be able to afford. They'll pay less because they don't like to pay 7% or qualify at 7% when they used to qualify at 4%, and be moderated by monthly payments. And we had a chart there a while ago that talked about the magic number of $4,741, which is what a household will pay to run their house for principal and interest. So does that answer your question, my friend?
It sure does. And if you look at that chart again, like make sure you click on that resource that we left in the description of this episode. It's such an exaggerated fall, right? I mean, hey, never say never. Who knows what could happen in the near future? But I mean, if home prices dropped off a cliff at that rate, there'd be a lot more things to worry about than your housing, to be honest, and to be quite right? A lot more things that are worse to worry about. But at the same time, and some of our very astute real estate chat commenters and viewers in the past have also commented that look at the costs to build housing today. Right? Construction costs, borrowing costs, labor costs, red tape, municipal government red tape that prevents certain things from being built, greenbelt, which we've talked about in past episodes. And also look at the fact that on the sidelines, there are investors, whether they're local investors, they're, foreign investors, which Canada's great at creating these policies to prevent that. And then all of a sudden ease them in when housing starts to go bad again. There's enough of a floor, there's enough variables that would create a floor, right, Robert, as to how far things could go how far things could drop before they start to either level off or pick up. Like the chart
all you have to do is drop interest rates by 2 points and it goes.
There you go. The chart is exaggerated. It's exaggerated, right? So bubbles have been called upon for years, decades, this and that. Again, never say never. I mean, I'm not going to rule it out, but you also have to use a bit of common sense. And you've got to look at what variables would prevent such a thing from happening, right? Well, thank you for watching this episode of Real Estate Chat. Make sure you click on subscribe. Tell us what you think about housing bubbles in the comments. Watch our next episode. Take care and bye for now.
Happy holidays.